Welcome back to Man Cave Movie Night. This is our very special 151st episode.
Woo! Yay, we made it, guys.
Even more exciting because it's an even bigger number.
That's true.
That is true.
Number go up.
Number go up.
More exciting with each
more
one.
exciting. Well, this episode we're doing a very special Succession discussion.
Nice.
This is a show that was on HBO.
Just normal HBO.
It's just on Max. And
Yeah,
Just normal
this is HBO? This is
Yeah,
just
it's
HBO?
HBO. Yeah.
See, that was a test. And you guys got it right. That's a point for each of you. We're going to be playing a little game at the start of this.
Nice. Great.
And what we're going to be playing is guess the quote. Or not guess the quote, but guess who said the quote.
Nice.
This show is filled with some very colorful language and very colorful lines. And I'm going to try to pick some mostly clean lines. And I will try to censor myself when words come up.
Okay.
But we're going to guess who said it. Which character it came from.
Who said it?
Oh, this is hard. I think there's only one character that I feel like I can confidently identify their lines. And
Yes,
that's,
if I have to censor
Roman.
half the words,
Yeah.
then it's Roman. Yes, so we'll go back and forth. I think that's most fair for no delay. But who would like to start?
Me, Niall.
All right, now.
Okay, you, Niall. Who said, "When you laugh, please do it at the same volume as everyone else. We didn't get you from a hyena farm."
That's gotta be Logan.
Yeah, I was going to say
That is Logan.
Okay, great.
Amazing. Point for Niall. Brings you to 2 points because, again,
Huge
you
deal,
got the first point. We're going over to Lucas. Lucas, who said, "What I think he meant to say was when he wished that mom gave birth to a can opener, or that he wished mom gave birth to a can opener because at least then it would be useful."
that sounds like Roman. That sounds a little too mean to be someone else.
That is Roman.
Oh,
Good
wow.
job.
I was going to guess Shiv on that one.
Shiv is very mean, and she swears way more than I thought she did upon looking at quotes.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys ready? You guys feeling good?
I'm feeling good.
Warmed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Then should we go into a little bit harder ones?
Let's
do it. Ready.
Okay, Niall.
Yep.
The quote is, "The Logan Roy School of Journalism. What's next? The Jack the Ripper Women's Health Clinic."
Oh, jeez. This show, man. That one is, it's too clever to be the other brother whose name I can never remember. I'm gonna, yeah, Connor.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Shiv on that.
That is incorrect. Lucas for the steal.
Man, I feel like that might be Tom. A little bit of a Tom.
A little bit of a Tom. That is also incorrect.
I think Tom's too much of a suck-up.
Yeah, I feel like he probably would have said it to like Greg.
Is it someone in the family?
I was going to say, it's probably not one of the main characters.
It is, but like I said, I was going for a hard one. This is Ewan, Logan's brother.
Oh,
of course.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay, then we're going to Lucas for another maybe more difficult one. The quote is, "They call Gil Meth Head Santa because he so rarely delivers."
Oh, man. I don't know. Man, I can't remember the character's name, but is that the lady they make CEO for the brief inner...
Jerry?
Tyler's.
Jerry, yeah.
It is not Jerry.
Okay.
Okay. That sounds like Tom to me. Tom Wamsgans.
That is also not Tom.
No
I tried to find an
way.
equally difficult character to guess. That is Hugo.
I was going to say, is that Fisher Stevens'
yeah.
character? That was my first guess. I
It
should have
is,
said
it
it.
is, it
One
is,
of
it is.
those guys.
I couldn't
Okay.
One of those guys.
I
Okay.
should have stuck with
that
guy.
that little troop.
Okay, we're going to the next one. I'm kind of jumping around to try to find equally
Great.
difficult ones. Let me stall. You guys talk. Give me a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Stalling.
Well,
Hold for stalling.
we will. Sorry for.
Okay,
kind
got
of
it.
spoiler.
All right,
Hold
next
for
one.
stalling.
Next one. These. Okay, Nile.
Yeah.
The quote is, "A real bar with chicks and guys who work with their hands and sweat from their hands and have blood in their hair."
That's Tom. That has to be Tom.
That's not Tom.
No
Say,
way.
is that
That's
Greg?
just. Oh, it could be.
That's
Greg,
not
too.
Greg.
It's not Greg.
It's
That
such
is
a
Connor.
fumbling. Okay.
It's when he's talking when they're going for his like bachelor party, and he's like, "I want to go to a bar, like a
Yeah.
real bar, with chicks and guys who work with their hands and sweat from their hands and have blood in their hair."
Blood in there.
It's so funny.
Dude, I love Connor. Like, is a
He's
main
so
character,
funny.
but like his little stuff like that, like frickin' his girlfriend / whatever,
Willa.
Willa,
Yeah.
her stage performance that he bankrolls, and just like all the crazy problems that come from that.
It's so funny.
Now it just sounds like the worst thing ever. And the frickin' bugs that are like in the sand. It's
Oh,
Man.
it's so good. Okay, we're going to Lucas.
Yep.
Lucas, the quote is, I'm not saying I'd make a better CEO. That's unsaid."
Oh man, that sounds like man, why can't Jeremy Strong, the main character's name?
Kendall.
Kendall, yeah, is that Kendall?
You guys really did your research before to brush up.
Well, I
was
know
gonna guess.
the actors' names very well. I
It
just can't
is
remember that.
not Kendall.
It's not Kendall, huh? Shiv.
It's not Shiv. It's Connor again.
Oh, double whammy.
That's a
with the Connor.
curveball.
CEO. I can't even remember him ever. Oh, I remember him being in the conversation for like one episode.
Yeah.
He's in every once in a while, and he's like, "I'm not saying I'd make a better CEO. That's unsaid."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's such a funny way to say it.
So good.
Okay. Cool. Let's go to our next one. Is it back to Niall?
No.
Back to me.
Niall, you don't hear much about syphilis these days. Very much the MySpace of STDs.
Well, it doesn't sound like Roman to me. And I'm trying to think of characters that we haven't had yet.
You
And
think
I know
You think I care about variety?
I know.
I think
I know I
who it
keep
is.
guessing this, but I actually feel still like it is Tom.
This is
these
Tom
all-
Wamsgans.
Yes, there you go.
There we go.
Okay, going over to Lucas. Lucas, his crew knows some unseemly venues. I danced with an old man. Yeah, he didn't want to dance, and they made us dance. He was so confused. I drank things that aren't normally drinks.
I know this one.
Definitely Greg. That's got to be Greg.
It's Greg.
That's such a good line.
It's
Drink things
very
that aren't normally drinks.
a definitive Greg quote because
Yeah.
it's all over the place, kind
Yeah,
of, and it's awkwardly said, and it
But it's
ends
tied off with such a
punch
bow.
bag.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Greg is so
amazing.
funny.
Okay, oh, man, I'm trying to find there's one other that I really want to say,
Okay,
but I need an equally good one to pair it with.
gotcha.
Okay,
Hold-
well,
hold for stalling.
I'm gonna start with Niall,
Okay,
and if I don't find an equally good one, then I'm sorry, but this game was rigged.
the
to
game
start.
is just over.
Niall,
Yeah.
who says the line, "You can't make a Tomlet without breaking some Gregs"?
Oh, nice.
Well, Tom says it. No. That is the subject line of his emails that he sends. However, I can't remember who actually says it. It's like a prosecuting attorney.
Oh,
You
yeah.
nailed that.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
That is Gil, the
Yeah.
like senator or governor
Yeah.
or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely knocked that out of the park. Because
Thank
it
you.
is a Tom line,
It's
but
a
not
Tom
said
quote,
by
but
him.
he doesn't say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, now stall while I look.
Okay, hold for
Well, so
stalling.
as you can tell, if you haven't watched Succession yet, this show is pretty funny. It's been
so funny.
It's interesting because Succession is usually billed as a drama for like the Emmys and stuff, and The Bear is usually billed as a comedy, which I find the opposite to be true most of the time.
Yeah.
The Bear has
I just
way
watched the
more
first
dramatic-
episode of The Bear, by the
Oh,
way.
nice.
Yeah, I watched
there
it
are
with my mom
definitely
last
like comedic elements in The Bear, but Succession, I mean, is more dramatic than Arrested Development. It's not a full-on sitcom, but it's a very similar like vibe as Arrested Development, where they're just a lot more mean and more wealthy.
It's people saying funny things in very serious situations.
Yeah.
Like it's
totally.
very rare that Succession has funny, like, situations that they're put in. It's usually pretty dramatic and serious, but the characters themselves are so funny, and the characters are also never like being funny in the show. It's that kind of, like,
No, they're not. Yeah, they're not
It's
comedic
just-
at all. But it's just the situational aspect.
Well, here is I think one that is equally, I think, challenging.
Cool.
For Lucas, the quote is, "Tom, it's tough to have to tell you this, but I'm in a sexual relationship with your mother. She talks in her sleep."
Oh man. Okay, give me a second here. Is this
embarrassing for
is this
you.
Roman?
This is not Roman.
Okay.
Seems like a Roman.
Yeah.
Seems like I was gonna say that too. Okay, will you give me the line one more time?
Tom, it's tough to have to tell you this, but I'm in a sexual relationship with your mother. She talks in her sleep.
Sexual relationship with your mother. She talks in her sleep. It's tough for me to tell you this. That doesn't sound like Kendall. Doesn't sound like Connor. It sounds like Roman.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating that it's not.
Oh,
Is it like Shiv that she says at some point to try to piss
Is it
him
Logan?
off?
it's not Shiv and it's not Logan. This is Jerry.
Oh,
Jerry.
really?
I
This
thought
is
about
out of
that for a
character
second.
for
I was
Jerry.
Like, it doesn't make
But
sense.
this is when Tom threatens to go public about the cruise stuff and have a press conference, and she's putting him back in his place, basically.
Nice.
So,
Jerry's a great character.
yeah.
Everyone's a great character.
Everyone's a great character, honestly. Well, there's a couple we missed. Of course, I didn't give any Kendall quotes, and I didn't give any Shiv quotes, but that's because I don't like Shiv quotes, and I think the best Kendall quote is saved for the end, so we could end it on it.
Nice.
And that is, I want to lead us into our intro to our show with, I think, the best song that we got to hear in the whole series. And it goes like this: L to the OG. Dude is the OG, and he's playing. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to Man Cave Movie Night.
Oh, whoop.
Very
Oh.
special 151st episode.
It's huge for us.
Guys, I did it. We did it. It's cool.
We made it
It's
beyond the goal.
Oh, yeah. I see.
cool. Yeah,
I
big stretch mark for us.
stretch mark. I have. I just need to say this out loud before we get any farther because I think my audio might sound a little weird. I'm in a new space. I've just moved out of Logan and I'm back at my parents' house. And I'm realizing there's nothing on the walls in this room. And so there's kind of a lot of like
Echo,
reverb
ambience.
and echo and stuff.
Yeah.
So I might sound like I'm standing in a cave this episode. And I apologize, I guess. That's the best I can do. But yeah.
Hey,
it's,
that's all right.
times are changing, things are changing. Graduation happened
Yeah.
for me.
Yes.
By the time this comes out, graduation will have happened for me. And another huge thing is that Jared watched this show that Lucas and I have been trying to get him to watch for a little while. Not very hard,
here's
and
the
it wasn't
thing.
like
No,
a
it's
convincing.
not very
Yeah. I knew it was a good drama. I'd heard a lot about it. And I think especially once I'd watched Severance, which was a show a lot of people had talked about.
Yeah.
Oh, so much.
And you guys recommended, and I watched per your recommendation, Lucas. I watched it, I loved it, and I was like, okay, I kind of feel ready for another of those big dramas. And so, of course, next I watched The Bear. And then The Bear was great. And then I finished that, and I was like, okay, I'm ready for another good drama. And so, of course, I watched Succession. Yes,
Nice.
that's right. So
There
that
we
brings
go.
us to today.
Awesome.
Huge deal.
And
That's
yeah,
funny. That's the same
flew
order
through it.
I did them in as well.
It's a good order. Yeah.
That's awesome. Succession, man. So the comedy element of it as well. I touched on that briefly already, but the pilot episode was directed by Adam McKay, who you may know from films such as Anchorman 1 and Anchorman
Talladega.
2. Talladega Nights, the other guys. He has also kind of transitioned into more of a dramedy category with like Vice and
Did you do
The Big Short and the one that no one liked but I liked, Don't Look Up. So that's kind of like what he's been doing recently. But
My dad liked it.
yeah,
And
maybe
I just
for the
shook
wrong
him and I
reasons.
said, "We're talking about you."
I like Adam McKay stuff by and large, and also co-executive produced by Will Ferrell. Succession is because those two
Really?
are buddies. Yep.
Was that is that
It's
in
the
there?
opening
'Cause
prequel.
I never
opening
saw
credits.
never saw or paid attention.
Yep.
Just
Will
the
Ferrell.
visuals. I didn't read any names. I just love that opening so much.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the little
Amazing.
changes they make from season to season. That's one of the. There are some shows where I'll skip the theme song. Not once did I even consider it with
No.
Succession.
Dude, the Succession theme song is the same with Severance. Both of them have incredible theme songs. I have them both in
So
playlists, and every now and again they'll come
Yeah.
up, and I'm just like, oh yes, they're so good.
Well, they're great songs, and they're so well utilized throughout the episodes, right? Because you'll hear them start playing in. And I mean, while we're on that topic, I wanted to say this show has some of the best lead-ins to the intro. Also, some of the most abrupt and not good ones. But I noticed just how well I liked this kind of like the drama starting to escalate. The music starts escalating, and it goes right into the intro.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Well, that's one of my.
boy.
It's one of my favorite things is that the theme song starts before the theme sequence.
Yeah.
So you're watching stuff happening and you feel that
Yeah.
building and
Yeah,
you're just
yep.
kind of like,
Dude, best ever utilization of sleigh bells in any song. It's so
dude.
It's like
Yeah.
It's so
True.
cool.
because it's not ever something you would put in a song.
I think that
isn't
Jingle
related to
Bells is
Christmas.
up there
Jingle Bells
for
is good.
for sleigh
I
bells
don't know.
utilization.
I don't know, dude.
It's
They use them pretty dang well in this.
Yeah.
Even if it's
Yeah.
the whole song is named after them, I think they're better utilized in this. 'Cause it just adds so much with like that the percussion backtrack. It's just like, oh yeah, sleigh
Oh,
bells with the
it's so
drum
good.
set. Let's go.
It's so good. That whole sequence. The music is like I remember when I started watching this. I have a bunch of these music friends that, you know, in different bands and whatnot. And anytime I was hanging out with any of them, I was like, have you seen Succession at all? They're like, yeah, is it good? And I'm like, yeah, you need to listen to the theme song right now. Turn it on. And everyone I show it to is always like, whoa, this is awesome.
I had never heard it until the first episode. I was like,
Yeah, same.
dang, bro, this song actually goes kind of hard. And then by the
Yeah.
second episode, you're like, you know what? Actually, this song goes really hard. I actually like this song a lot.
Well, it's
that's
it's
brilliant.
percussive, but it also has just a very basic piano, like raw
But it's
piano, not
so
basic,
good, yeah.
which makes it feel very regal and very like punchy, you know,
Yeah.
very cutthroat. I don't know what the vibe would be. Man, it's intense. The whole
Yeah.
show is,
Yeah.
and hilarious. And,
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we kind of derailed you and cut you off for a second, but I don't know what you were.
Who? Me?
You.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I was just
Okay.
I was just double checking who created the
theme?
well,
Was,
who created the whole
Lil Nas
series?
X, right?
Jesse
HBO.
Armstrong. Yeah, HBO. Jesse Armstrong created because Mark Mylod was one of the main directors. He directed 16.
Lance's little brother.
Lance's little brother. Yep. Matt Shackman actually also directed an episode, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Which
He
one
shows up
was it?
everywhere. It was it doesn't pull up here on IMDb. Maybe it does. Looks like
Also, I'll say this now. We're gonna just get into some spoilers.
yeah.
I'm sure the big spoilers will come as it'll progressively get more and more spoilery. But this
Yeah.
is an open discussion. This is one that none of us have really talked about the show. Like, at least I
Yeah.
haven't talked with either of you much about the show.
I don't think Lucas and I have really talked about it much either. So
So we just are itching to get into the nitty gritty of it all, and those big swings that the show makes, and definitely knocks out of the park. And so that is your warning. Go watch the show. We don't care if you finish this episode of our podcast, but we'd prefer you not get things spoiled for you. So,
Yeah, totally. Another director who worked on this, which is just insane, is S.J. Clarkson, who directed Madam Web. She directed an episode of Succession.
I actually do. There is one episode where the episode's web connects them all, and so it kind of makes sense that they were
makes
honing
sense.
their craft. It's very much the Russo brothers doing the paintball episodes of
yeah,
Community, really honing their craft before Endgame.
yeah, exactly. Oh man. So, oh man, this is just great. So with Adam McKay directing the first episode, one thing that's cool about this show and shows in general, the pilot determines a lot of the pacing, editing, how the show is shot. That kind of continues on for the rest of the show. And Adam McKay, though he did not create the show, he worked with Jesse Armstrong, and it was like, hey, I want to shoot this on film so that the whole show is shot on film. And that was the case. The entire show was shot on film, which is very rare nowadays for TV, especially long stuff like this. And a lot, it's filmed very observationally. It's like very far away. The camera zooms a lot, and it took a little bit for me to get used to, honestly. But once you kind of get into the rhythm of the way that it's paced and shot, characters are really interesting as well, because side characters show up and disappear like crazy. Like Hugo Fisher-Stevens' character just shows up one episode and he's around for the rest of the show. And like Danny Huston's character, who I don't remember. He's like, he also played Stryker.
I definitely know who Danny Huston is, so we're good there.
He played Stryker.
I also can't remember
in X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is funny because there's a shot where it's just Brian Cox and Danny Huston, and they both played Stryker in different X-Men movies. And that was the first scene that he shows up in. I was like, what the heck?
But yeah.
Because I was so caught off guard. I was like, what? It's both the Strykers sitting next to each other. And then they have a lot of scenes together because Logan is the main person he interacts with. But he kind of shows up and then disappears similarly. And so it's very cool the way that they do that. They're just like, we're living in this world. We're kind of like fly on the wall, observing it all occur.
Yeah. Well,
it's
I
awesome.
watched a thing that kind of, I couldn't figure out why the way it was filmed was so interesting to me. And then I watched this thing where they basically describe the camera as the unnamed character in the show. And they film it in a way so that the camera doesn't feel like, the camera feels like it's there. It almost like borders like a documentary feel at times, because you feel like you are in the room and kind of present for something that maybe you shouldn't be present for at all times.
Totally.
And one of the ways they achieved that, they don't do this with every scene, but with many, many of the scenes, they filmed them in one take from a bunch of different angles, and they had different cameras in the room, and then they would take those entire takes where they would film an entire 20-minute scene, and then they would just kind of take the best parts of them. So the actors didn't know when they were going to be on camera. They had to be acting at all times, because maybe one of the 3 cameras in the room is going to choose to pan over to them. And the amount of work that requires for the actors is huge, because in TV, you're filming almost sentence by sentence sometimes. And so they have to be on the entire time. But then also the amount of pressure that puts on the camera operators they're not just there filming the thing that the director tells them to point at. They have to know the script. They have to know what's going on. And then they have to also feel the freedom to kind of react freely. It's a strange thing where in this show, there are many, many times where rather than focusing on who's speaking, you're getting reaction shots.
Yeah, totally.
Like it'll start on someone speaking and then it'll pan over to Kendall and you'll see him kind of reacting to it. And it's this, it kind of creates this feeling of that's what you do when you're in a room and someone starts saying something that is going to offend someone else. You stop looking at who's talking and you look at the person who's being offended.
Oh, totally.
And the way that it like pans over and things like that, rather than just cutting to a shot of them, makes it feel like you are in that room, being there, and you're kind of an omniscient character that knows more than people in the room, but you're part of it. And they filmed it that way very intentionally to make you feel like you're kind of a character in this show. And I love that approach. I think that maybe it's just me being a theater kid, but when you do something in a way where everybody is engaged the entire time, I feel like it just elevates everybody's performance that much,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like you're in the room with them. And from what I know, of the little I know about the cast, I know a lot of them are like theater stage actors, right? Or at least have done some of that in the past, like Tom and Kendall. And so it's cool to see, these actors just get the full scene and just deliver, right? I mean, like I said, I didn't know that's how it was shot, but I had a conversation with one of my coworkers, a little Greg of my own, and we were chatting about it, and I was like, doesn't it like fully feel like you're in the room with them? And that was just an observation I had made, and it's cool to hear that that's very intentional.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, a lot of it is improvised as well. Like obviously there's a lot that's very scripted, but because of the nature of the filming, I think it was not quite to the level of Curb Your Enthusiasm, where it's like, here's a scenario, ready, set, go. Right. There was like a lot of improv that just kind of had to happen from the nature of the way that they shot it. That it was like, hey, we're talking, we ran out. We've gone through our lines. We need to keep and get like this isn't done.
Yeah.
Which is a very cool part of it as well, because a lot of comedy is improvised as well too, and a lot of this.
There are specific scenes that I think they were kind of told, like, here are the big touch points that your character is trying to get across, and go. So it's kind of like to give it that really like that real feeling, like we strive for on the podcast, of talking over each other the entire time.
Exactly.
They get that because they're like, Roman knows, okay, I am trying to talk about this thing, and this is the most important thing to me. And so somebody else is coming at me with something. I'm going to talk over them, like basically be the loudest person in the room so that I can be heard. I think it's not like constantly, but I think there are certain scenes, and you can kind of feel when they come up. There are certain scenes where everybody has their own agenda, and they're all at these, kind of war room council type scenes where everybody's talking about what needs to be done. And it is, first of all, so stressful, those kinds of scenes.
Well,
but also they feel, they're frustrating, and they feel so real. And it's because they're like 50% improvised. Everybody knows what their character is trying to say, and here's the stuff that you need to say in this scene. now just kind of go for it.
Well,
I think it's really cool.
Here's a little bit more specific with that. It says most scenes are partially improvised, some entirely. Unusual for a drama, the Succession cast are given freedom to improvise. So I think it is a bit of like the curb approach of like, here's the scenario, but also here are some lines that you have to hit, or at least some story beats. Where it's like, because there's also alternative dialogue and character directions like in the scripts, because what they actually shot, they were like, okay, this actually ended up working better, which is pretty cool because it kind of gives a little bit more creativity to the actors in that kind of scenario, which is a lot of fun. Especially when you have like super competent actors like this who are all, it seems, independently very competent and creative and funny, and so it just kind of works really well for that.
Speaking of these creative, competent, awesome characters, maybe we should start dipping into some of our favorite side characters and then narrow into our favorite main characters. Because holy crap, guys, this ensemble is awesome. And like you're saying, the format is super strange where, people kind of come and go. There are plot points that kind of come and go as well that I like the cruise stuff.
Yeah, kind of
it's like
in and
important
out.
for an episode, and then a couple episodes you don't hear about it at all, and then it's incredibly important for like 5 episodes, and then
and then it goes away for a season, and then
it
starts
comes
coming
back
back up, and then you're like, oh no, that's still a thing, isn't it?
And that happens with the cruises, with the election, like with some of these main purchases,
with the big
acquisitions like Pierce and Mattson or Gojo. You hear this, with the kid at the party at the wedding, and so there's so many things that just are kind of interwoven. And it's interesting to see that really it's these relationships throughout, and then things kind of come up as they become important, and fires are needed to be put out. But,
and that's
go.
You
have more direction with what you're going to say.
That's a huge part of why I really enjoyed this show after like season 1. Because every action has a consequence, and there's nothing that's just like, oh, we're just going to forget about that or not reference it ever again. Even tiny little things, they keep bringing back, like, I mean, obviously, or the major events keep coming back for good reason, because there are plenty of shows where it's like, oh no, this major thing happened, we move on from it, and people kind of forget. Not with this show. And so I really did like season 1. It was enough to hook me, but I liked the subsequent seasons more because season 1 is kind of like the foundation, and the foundation is important, but it's like everything that goes on top of that is way, you don't have any of that without the foundation. And so it was great kind of seeing those actions continue to have consequences, because a lot of those themes are established in season 1 and then really culminated. Actually, season 4 was my favorite. I loved season 4. It was just amazing. And so I feel like it just delivered on everything that I wanted it to. And we can talk about this when we get later, but I predicted the ending. So
you did.
Wow.
I did not. So talking on consequences, though, I like that there are big things that have consequences, and every action has consequences. However, there are some things that those consequences never come back to them. Yeah. Which is so, like, the way the first episode ends with Roman promising this money to this groundskeeper's kid, if he can make this hit or whatever, and then he doesn't, and he rips up the check in front of him. That was where I was 100% hooked for the show.
That's episode 1 too.
Just because, and that's episode 1. It's at the very end of it. But I just kind of like, you're just seeing these people that don't even. They were raised in a way where they don't have the ability to understand how bad of people they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
And I think there's something interesting about a show like Breaking Bad, where characters slowly kind of turn into these dark versions of themselves or whatever. But I think it's really interesting to see a show about characters who were raised kind of evil.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And almost at some points, especially with Kendall, kind of having a reverse Walter White, like trying so hard to be better and kind of escape the loop, and not necessarily like honestly trying to escape that and be better, but at least escape his family's way of doing things. Yeah. And so you see these attempted redemption arcs, but this kind of darkness and evil of their family is so deeply rooted with them that it's the only thing they know. And I think that the way that first episode ended, I was just like, oh yeah, this show is like, I get it. I get the premise now. And this is just, and I think along with that, you're rooting for basically all of the characters. They do a really good job at making you
I don't know about that.
I'll jump in here because I said this as I started watching it. I at least said this to Lucas. Maybe I said this to Niall too. But I felt like it was a little bit longer for me to really be hooked on the show. Kind of like Lucas. It's about season 2, the events at the end of season 1.
Yeah, totally.
And then the character changes into season 2 that made me start to like really be dug in. And I think the reason is it felt like Game of Thrones, but there's no House Stark. There's nobody that you're like, that's who I want to root for. There's nobody I want to. I'm like, Kendall sucks. Roman's perverted in so many ways.
Yeah.
Shiv is a little bit of a B word, you know? Like, Logan is clearly manipulative and...
terrible.
Just terrible. Yeah. There is nobody. Even Greg's a dumbass, right? Like, it's so hard to root for anybody. Until, like, towards the end. Then I started finding a couple people who were like, I'm like, yeah, I'm sold. I care about all the characters, and I'm so intrigued on what they're gonna do, but I don't like any of them. I don't want any of them to succeed.
That's interesting because for me, I had basically the opposite thing where whichever character is being followed at the time, I was kind of like, oh yeah, I do want you to come out on top. You know, like
that is not how I was.
Well, here's the thing, not because. No, what I'm saying is not because I think they would be good. The show does a good job of making you understand where they're coming from. Yeah. And so you kind of become like sympathetic, at least to a degree of like, well, Shiv was promised this spot and then she got screwed. Yeah. So she deserves it, you know? And like these different things like that where you for me at least, I felt like the show did a really good job of kind of because there's no one that's obviously the good person to root for, which I love. I feel like it gives you permission to kind of just say to the show, okay, in this scene, tell me who I should be rooting for. And I feel like the show always kind of does that. And so at different points, I was always jumping around of like whose side I was on and who I wanted to, you know, come out on top. And it always changed for me. Like there wasn't at any point where I was like, oh, this is my guy and I'm team, you know, Roman, whatever. And I like, regardless of what happened, I'm sticking with it. Yeah. Multiple times an episode, I'm changing my mind, but I feel like the show does a really good job. This is interesting because it's basically exactly opposite of your experience and we all still loved it.
Yeah.
But
man, I feel like
the show kind of does a good job of making you feel a degree of sympathy for these people and then also making you feel bad for feeling sympathetic towards them because you're like, no, well, these guys they're awful. Like it's not like I want them to do well overall, but at the micro level of just the person getting what they want, I'm sympathetic to that. And I'm, you know, the Shiv example is the strongest one where she got screwed. Yeah. She was promised this. Well, Kendall too. Dude, all of them at certain points. Screwed.
Kendall I get behind, yeah.
That is so interesting. Totally. I pretty much disagree with everything you said, Niall, about the sympathy.
Wow.
I never once felt sympathy for any of these characters. Like, I feel like the show is like, hey, look, these are the worst people on the planet. They're completely out of touch. I feel like it's like these problems are so insignificant because even with the end, like huge spoiler alert. So if you've made it this far, spoiler for the finale.
Yep,
with Kendall not getting the CEO position, he still gets $3 billion. I don't feel bad for him not getting the CEO at all. And it's like, oh, I feel so bad that Kendall killed a kid. Oh, it's like, no. like I feel bad
No,
for the
he
kid,
killed
not
the kid
bad
and
for
there's
Kendall.
no
Like
consequences.
it's like
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
and that comes up, and he's like, like it really didn't matter that much, I guess. And it's like, and I feel like the whole point of the show is to show you like, hey, this is what extreme wealth does to a person, and it's bad. Like their problems
right.
are so just inconsequential compared, especially the first episode with like that
Yeah.
working family that's like, hey, here's $1 million, never mind, lol, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Like with the stuff like with Connor and the play,
Connor's
him
like, "I
running
wanna
out
run
of
for
money. He's like,
president."
hey, can you just float me a quick $100 million? Like it's just
Yeah.
so nothing. All these problems that they encounter, I'm like, it's great and super interesting to watch, but it's not like, oh, I feel sympathy towards them. It's like, wow, that is just such an interesting perspective on this class of person. Partially also because it's not directly based on the Murdochs, but it's pretty heavily inspired by the Murdochs, I will say. The Murdochs are the family who owned, or at least were in charge of 20th Century Fox, or just all the Fox News, all of that before they split. Similar like in the show where they just kept the news and all their other media departments split, just like with Disney and Fox in real life. And then in real life, actually, Murdoch died. The Rupert Murdoch.
Without naming.
No, he named his oldest son the successor.
Oh.
Yeah, the Kendall character that's based on did end up succeeding him. And at this point, Fox is just news, but still, it's like that empire, the Fox empire, went to the Kendall character in real life,
Well,
which is
I
and
almost
that was
feel like
after
then-
Succession had ended as well.
Yeah. I almost feel like you guys had the experience that like the writers and the creators intended, and I had maybe the experience that like the actors intended.
Yeah, maybe.
Of like
Sure.
making
Yeah.
my character feel real and relatable despite being so far from either of those things.
Yeah.
You know? And I genuinely think while we probably had vastly different experiences watching the show, the fact that all of us still loved it despite having those
Different
different
perspectives
feelings
on the
towards it,
characters, yeah.
I think kind of is a testament to how well made the show is. Like it's not often that you get a show where kind of everybody can find something that they're gonna attach themselves to, regardless of whether they even like. Because I know plenty of people who, just because of the like content of the show, are probably gonna like, no, I don't like it, you know.
Yeah.
But I can't really imagine someone watching this and not at least feeling compelled by the story to see what happens next.
Totally.
You know?
It's definitely, especially like, yeah, the first episode does a great job because I think he has the heart attack at the very end, or the stroke. That's the first episode, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. And I will say, not that I was rooting for him, but of all the characters, Logan was like the most of a realist because he was the guy who had actually started the company. He was the guy who had a real life before. I mean, and obviously he had become corrupted and polluted by the billions and the wealth and the status and all that. But he at least sometimes had that thing where he was like, hey, you don't know what it's like to actually like struggle and work.
I can work. Well, and he's kind of the only character who addresses the silver platter childhood that all of these other characters
They're
have.
so like in
everyone
denial
else,
of it. Everyone else is like,
yeah. But he will just straight up tell them like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't have any real experience. And I'm totally with you. You kind of, Logan feels like the realist character, even though he's arguably the worst of all of them.
Yeah.
He also feels like he's kind of to a gross degree, like earned the right to be like kind of who he is,
More so
because
than
he
the
at
other
least
ones,
worked to
certainly,
get
Definitely.
there.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is when he's talking to Kendall and he's like, I don't know the exact line, but it's like, you'll never make it because you're not a killer. And I just love that because it's so true. Kendall is just, he has this persona in his mind that he thinks he is. The L to the OG is just like a perfect example. He thinks he's just this baller, just absolute legend.
Well, yeah.
But he's just not that. And it establishes that in the very first episode when it's like, oh,
When
he's going to
he's-
become CEO. And
Well, and the first time he's on camera, he's listening to his like rap hype up stuff
Beastie
before he
Boys,
goes and does
yeah.
this huge business deal, and then he goes and he doesn't
botches it. Yeah.
land it
Yeah.
because he's an
Fails,
idiot.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the fourth or fifth episode in season 1 when he just can't make it to the board meeting, and they try and usurp Logan, and he's like, nope.
Yeah.
Logan is he's just such a commanding presence, and Kendall never has that.
Well, and there's a quote from Tom when Tom goes and talks to Kendall. I think it's in like the end of season 3 or something like that, or maybe it's season 2. It's all kind of blending together. But he's like, basically, I'm siding with Logan because I've seen you fail many times now, and I've never seen Logan fail once.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, dude,
and it's just,
I love it.
That's obviously
It's just,
paraphrasing, but
no, totally.
man,
It's
so cool. And I think the main thing that I really liked about this show is those politics. It felt like watching Survivor, the show, or playing like a big strategy all-day board game like the ones we like to play, where people are like, can I talk to you in the back? And you see two people go off into another room, and you're like, I know they're planning on trying to attack me.
I don't know what they're saying, but I don't need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
All I know is that they're talking, and that's enough.
Yeah, and okay, so maybe I'm losing power here. How can I get that power back? How can I start swaying the votes in my opinion, or like in my favor? So
that goes to the most hyped I got during this show. So there's an episode you guys both know that I very badly want to talk about before we're done, but the end of season 3, where the siblings kind of band together and we're like, we're going to take Logan down. We're going to take him down. Yeah. And then he knows about it. And
knows.
you're kind of like, how? Yeah. How does he know? And then Tom comes
bro.
out and Logan just kind of pats him on the shoulder.
I love
and
it.
he looks at Shiv and Shiv looks at him. And then that's like the end of the season. I was just
that
like,
was the best. Yeah,
okay.
one of my favorite moments in that whole show was that one like reveal of Tom.
Yeah.
And he had a call with Greg before that as well.
Yeah.
Like, and that's all you see of Tom.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and Greg is like in the bathroom.
And he's like, are you ready to throw it all away or whatever?
Yeah.
Like,
what did he say?
do you want to make it? Or I can't remember what he says, but
I might look it up, but because it's such a good line.
It's so good.
Well, here's the thing too.
Tom and Greg are the
to
best.
answer Jared's question that we never got to. Side characters, I loved Alexander Skarsgård's character. I thought he was a phenomenal addition to season 3 and 4. And I loved, again, the real world tie with the acquisition thing. It's not a exact parallel 1-to-1, but it's very similar to the Fox Disney thing where it's like, hey, Fox sold off all of their stuff except for news in real life. And the back and forth with Disney was a lot. And, you know, Stellan Skarsgård's character, or Alex Skarsgård's character, is more of like a Netflix type system. But still like very crummy, like just European billionaire. And here's what I'll say about the finale as well. I predicted that it would be Tom. I thought in the finale, I was like, oh, never mind. I guess I was wrong. It was Kendall. Like that makes sense. Like up until it was revealed it's Tom. And I'll tell you why. And I don't know what it was. And I don't remember the episode. I wish I would have written it down. But there's a scene in season 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure it's 2 because it's pretty early on, where Kendall and Tom have a reaction, and the camera just lingers on Tom. And I just in that moment, I was like, it's Tom. Tom is going to be the one to do this.
Wow.
I don't know what about it. I was like, I feel like the way that scene was shot, they were just like, Tom is important.
They were kind of
he's the guy. And I was just like, man, I bet it's going to be Tom. And that was so early on, I was like, whatever. And I couldn't tell anyone that as well because I hadn't finished it. The only other person I know who'd seen it had finished it. And I didn't want to like spoil it and be like, hey, I didn't want to put that idea in someone else's mind of like, hey, what if it's Tom? And then you're like kind of skewed it because it could be wrong. Like I didn't know. And I didn't want to talk to someone who had already seen it because then they're like, oh, interesting.
Because then they're like, oh,
wow,
that's a really keep watching.
Yeah, maybe, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of kept it to myself. And I was like, even up until the boardroom thing, up until Alexander Skarsgård was like, hey, we want you. And I was like, dang, bro, it actually is going to be Tom.
Yeah.
And that is like in the last 20 minutes. Like it's pretty far in that they're just like, hey, it's Tom.
In that last episode, it's such a good culmination of everything that has come up to that point. And I guess we're going to just skip characters and talk about the finale because now we got it, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole time, of course, it's called Succession. The premise is who's going to take over as CEO of the company when Logan passes. And so your mindset's always kind of weighing the options. Who do I like? Who do I not like? And Kendall does seem like the obvious choice,
Yeah.
right? He's
He's the eldest boy.
He's the eldest boy with the little spittle.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't do this, he might die.
Yeah. Dude, I love that line.
Anyway, he's got plenty of banger lines in there.
does.
But
He's so good.
he's the eldest boy. He went to business school. He did the programs and stuff. He's worked at the company in high positions. It just makes sense, right? But he's not a killer. And I thought he was being whiplashed a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Adversity. And I think he was. I think that's Logan's intent. Anyway. But every time he gets power, even a little bit, or he makes a play and it's a good play, he becomes the most unbearable character.
Yep.
His ego goes through the roof. He cannot control it. And Shiv has a line in that last episode where she's like, I don't think you'd be good at it. And then she says, I cannot stand you, basically.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Like,
It's awesome.
And it's exactly right, you know? And then Roman has a line where he's like, no, we're bullshit. Like, all of us are just bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah.
He
And-
finally realizes it. He gets it.
Well, he's like,
that's
yeah,
I mean,
like,
not that well, but enough.
we're bullshit. We didn't do anything,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Logan was saying that the whole time, but we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then even Shiv was like, her whole character, it seems throughout the show, is like figuring out how to be a woman in power in an organization where, or in just in a society where it's very male dominated.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, even Logan has such a skewed vision of women in power, and like it was never going to be her. And
Yeah.
I would love for it to be her, but like it just never would. And this is a tragedy. This is not
this is
some
King
heroic
Lear.
story.
It's
Yeah.
And so I think, in that final little bit, it's who played the game, you know?
Yeah.
And that is Tom.
totally.
Tom
Bland.
did come
From
from
day
nothing,
one.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He always
He
took
married
shit.
in, even
He
though it
married
sucked.
in.
Yeah. Like.
He was going to go to jail for the company.
yeah.
He in that final episode, the conversation with Mattson is just absolutely brutal.
Oh, yeah. He
Matson's
just
like,
flays
I
him.
want to bang your wife.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a man too. I get it,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And you can tell it bothers him, but he just lets it
Uh-huh.
lets
Yeah.
it go because he's like, I will eat shit. I will take the pain. That's who I am. That's what I do. And
Except with Greg.
homie gets it. Well, he needs a punch.
Yeah, he
back,
needs.
doesn't he?
Yeah, and he goes off. Yeah, it's awesome.
And so,
Well-
oh man, it just is such a. That's why it's the perfect ending, right?
totally.
It's because none of them should have gotten it. Greg, I was kind of hoping Greg would be a little bit more of a player just from how
Me
he was
too.
set up, but I love that he wasn't, and I just had to accept at a certain point that
Well, I liked how
he's
he was
just
the
cousin
one.
Greg.
He was the one who revealed it. Like he was the one who leaked
Yeah.
it, and it was just because he put the Google Translate on. It was like, holy crap, it's Tom. And so Shiv knew in the meeting at the end, right? She's like, I know if
Well,
it's
so
not Kendall,
he-
it's Tom.
No,
Or who
so
was it
what
that
happened?
she told?
What happened was
Or Greg told?
he did the Google Translate. I watched this last night.
Yeah, you know.
He did the translate, and he found out that Madsen was saying that it wasn't going to be her. Like it wasn't going to be
yeah,
Shiv.
that's what. Yeah.
And so he's like, "Hey," calls Kendall. I want to be part of the quad, which he was pushing for, and he's like, "Just know it's not going to be Shiv."
That's what it was.
Right?
Yep, that's what it was.
And then
he
so
had
they
been
didn't
telling
know
her
who
yeah,
it was
yeah,
going to be. They thought it was going to be some other tech CEO.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until the auction for all
Right.
of Logan's stuff in the apartment that Tom tells Shiv.
Oh yeah,
"It's
that's what it
me."
is.
Yeah.
And she's like, "F off. We're doing this. We're
Oh.
killing you. We're slitting your throat, basically." You know what I mean?
So she
And they
does
go
know in
in.
the boardroom. Yeah, that it would be
does,
Tom.
yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because at the end, it's like,
dude,
okay,
oh,
well, my husband is gonna be it if it's not Kendall.
Yeah.
So it's like she's not totally out in the dust.
No, but
And
she's
just-
in a loveless marriage.
I
at
love
the
it,
end.
But
yeah.
that in one of the best shots in the whole show because it communicates so much without a single word needing to be said is them getting in the car
Yeah, oh, totally.
and not
Yeah, I'm
looking at
glad.
each other and Tom just turns his hand over and she reaches over and takes it
And
I'm
they're
just like,
miserable.
oh, this is horrible.
And it's like she
But-
is now basically her mom, right? In a loveless
Yeah.
marriage with the CEO of Waystar, Royco,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
Just, oh, like Tom has effectively become Logan in a sense,
Yeah.
and she has become the person she hates the most in the world, her own mom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's so
Which-
beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Their
so
mom
well.
is another one of the side characters that I want to shout out. Anytime she's present, everything just gets stirred up just a little bit more. And she is a master at manipulating her kids. The first time you go and meet the mom, you're almost kind of hoping like, oh, well, she left Logan. Hopefully, like, she's actually kind of a good person. And then she's just also terrible to all of her kids. And it's like, I loved her character.
Same.
I know we're going to be wrapping up soon,
Yeah.
so I just want to bring up the episode that is, I think, my favorite television I've ever watched. Maybe the best hour of television I've ever seen, which is, I think, episode 3 of season 4, the episode where Logan dies
Yeah.
and everybody finds
Connor's
out.
wedding.
They have
Connor's wedding.
Connor's wedding. They're on this boat. Everybody finds out, and the whole time, all of the characters are having the same thoughts that you, as a viewer, are having, which is, wait, there's no way.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck?
It's
Yeah.
it's so smart of them to not do it as a series finale,
I
because
agree.
that's what you would expect it to be.
Yeah.
And it's pretty early in the season,
because
too.
that's kind of the end of the story. But he dies third episode. You're not expecting something big to happen,
Especially on the wedding
episode
episode.
3.
Yeah.
And
Like-
and they are not expecting this death to happen. And so he dies, and the characters, you watch them basically go through the 5 stages of grief, but also you're thinking like, oh, this is a play. This isn't real. He's doing something to kind of stir them up and piss them off, and he's not actually dying. And then slowly you start to realize like, no, this is totally real. And you see these characters who, despite the hate that some of them have for their dad, they're still his kids, and they have these emotional responses.
Yeah.
And all of that mixed in with the way this show is shot, the way that they, especially with Shiv going around the ship trying to find Connor, because she's the one that has to tell him. The fun fact that I learned is they didn't tell her where Connor was going to be.
Oh, on the ship.
Every time they did a take, they put him in a different place.
Interesting.
So that she
That's fun.
had to
She
just
had to
go
actually
around and
look,
look.
yeah.
And the cameras were just following her around, trying to like, and so she's panicked, and you feel this true sense of like this. She needs to communicate this now, and every second wasted is like another. It's just it's the most stressful and but cathartic and
Yeah.
beautiful and disgusting, and it's dude, it is
It's good.
perfect.
It's really good.
I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And with the actual funeral episode, when Roman has his just complete collapse, just absolute breakdown,
Yeah.
it's like, I think
He
that
feels for the first time.
yeah.
I fully cried, like wept during that.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
I could not hold it in.
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't even like Roman that much.
No, yeah.
I feel like,
But it's just
But I
genuine.
can't. It was such a. They're so talented. They're so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, they are. They're so
Yeah,
good.
dude.
And it's like, I feel like with that as well, it's like, hey, dude, you have to actually, this is a real problem that you can't just like wish away. Money doesn't solve, like your dad is actually dead. And I don't think he or a lot of them had actually come to terms with that. And for him, obviously, in that exact moment where he was like, oh crap, he's dead. My dad is dead. Like it actually happened.
dad's in
My
there.
dad is in that box. Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
it's brutal. And it's like, again,
Ooh.
I really was, I was not, as awful as this is going to sound, it's like, obviously, you mourn the passing of a person, whatever. Everyone is entitled, no matter what class of person you are. But it's like, I did not feel that much sympathy with him just because Roman is just the worst person. I mean, he's not the worst character of all of them, but it's like, dude, yeah, you actually have to deal, like, your dad did actually die. This is, real
Yeah.
emotion for the first time. Like, this is an actual problem. This isn't some little tiff, whatever, with your siblings. Like, for him to actually experience that for the first time was really well executed.
Well, and I think it's another thing. That's where Roman starts to realize that none of them know what they're doing.
Exactly.
They don't actually
Yep,
have
exactly.
any, because like, okay, Dad's gone, and he's the only one that actually knew how to do any of this stuff.
Yeah, they just
I
can't.
think
they
that's
just fumble the bag.
That's
with
the start
murder.
of what I hope after the series, like, because you get to just kind of headcanon what happens to all of these characters afterwards. And what I kind of hope is that Roman kind of steps away from the family and at least somewhat becomes like an actual member of society, just because he realizes like this family is nothing. Like he kind of has that separation in that last episode, especially.
Yeah.
And he being the character that is seemingly through the whole series the most irredeemably just
Perverse.
crooked
Yeah.
and awful, kind of has the closest thing to a 180 that any of the characters in the
Totally.
show
Yeah.
possibly can have. And you almost kind of hope like,
Maybe.
man, I hope
maybe
he kind of
things are
just
gonna get better.
turn like somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they
dude.
probably don't, but you don't, that's not part of this
Yeah,
story. So
exactly.
you don't need to know.
When Kendall grabs his head right as they're deciding they're not
Oh.
going to vote for it, it's like, dude,
Well,
what
that-
the?
Yeah.
That
When
whole
he
scene is
brings
just
him
crazy.
into a hug and just pushes his stitches into his shoulder.
Oh yeah.
And like you can
dude.
tell it's like for both of them, you know, Kendall's like I'm in charge power thing,
Yeah.
and Roman's just absolutely kind of likes the pain, likes being put in his place.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's
If I,
amazing.
the whole "if I don't get this, I might die" thing. Such a
Yeah.
good line. It just
Yeah.
culminates like and wraps up his character so well. It's like, dude, he doesn't
Yeah.
even really care about being CEO. He just cares about the idea. Like he isn't.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be good
Yeah.
at it. It's just the
Totally.
whole
Well-
ego thing. It's like, well, I'm the oldest boy, which he isn't. Also, he's the oldest
Yeah.
of those
Yeah.
three. But it's like.
Yeah.
And I love that Shiv and Roman are like, look, man, sorry, like we're not
Yeah.
on your we're not on your team after all. And
Well, and I think that's one of the things is like, of course they care about the money, but they only really realize how much they care about it when their stuff starts getting taken away. When Logan like makes it so they can't use the helicopter.
Yeah.
And they're
Or
like,
the
we don't have a
jets."
helicopter or jets, things like that, you know. But I
well,
think to
that's
them,
not a good
to
part of
them,
the deal.
yeah. but to them, the money isn't an issue because they've never not had money.
Yeah.
So that's not even a thing they're thinking about. They're thinking like that's why, despite Kendall getting $3 billion, his character still has a tragic ending because that's not what his character cared about.
exactly, yeah,
His
exactly.
character
Totally.
cared about controlling the company and having the company. And so it's like, it shows like this dude was not going to be satisfied with
And
anything
even if he had gotten it.
outside of, but yeah, if he had gotten it, he would have been satisfied for like a
Yeah,
week.
and then
And
he
then
would
when
have
he
been
started having to actually do it, he wouldn't have been able to, and the company would have
Yeah,
failed.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
regardless of what happens, it's like he is, despite getting $3 billion, his character has a tragic ending, which is beautiful. I love the fact that they show like this dude is so messed up that this isn't a win for
Yeah.
him. Like,
and it's like
so
him
cool.
walking like towards the sea with their bodyguard, just kind of hovering in the background,
Yeah.
just in case he tries to kill
Yep.
himself again. It's like I love that little piece of it too, and it's like you
Yeah,
can tell he kind of
so
notices,
good.
so he just sits down on the bench. Not that I mean, who knows? Maybe he would have tried it if the bodyguard wasn't there, but it's just like
You'll never know, and that's
Yeah.
part of
yeah,
it. You know,
and just like the whole weird sympathy. Like he wanted people to feel bad for him because he killed the kid, but not for the kid. Like he wanted
Yeah.
him to
Yeah.
feel bad for the emotions he was going through.
They-
It's like
yeah.
for the wrong
He
reasons.
wanted to-
Like it was just it was just so twisted. Like
Yeah.
way
He
messed
wanted
up.
to get it off his chest because that would make him feel better, not because it would be a better, like it would help
Yeah, exactly.
the guy or anything. He didn't actually feel bad for the consequences. And he throws them all away basically in that last episode
Well, and
too.
even when he brings up that he killed the kid,
Yeah.
he brings it up to
As a
get as a
manipulation
Yeah,
defense.
totally,
yeah,
absolutely.
to get his
Yeah.
siblings to back off of him.
Well, and then in
it's
the
just-
finale too, in that little boardroom, like that side.
They're like, you killed
You
the
killed
kid.
the kid. He's like,
He's like, no,
no,
dude.
yeah, he
That didn't
I
happen.
lied.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he
It's
tries
like,
to play it
what?
off. It's like,
So brutal.
dude, what?
Well-
It's crazy.
Guys, we love this show so much we could talk about it for 5 ever.
Truly.
True.
For 4 seasons of this show worth, I wanted to throw in my side characters that I liked, and that's just the trio that is formed
Nice,
between
yeah.
Jerry, Frank, and Carl.
Those three are great.
They're
I love
awesome,
them.
and they're really great characters to have in the show. The Logan's old guard, still
Yeah.
contesting now with the kids, but
The
also
people who actually kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
a lot of the time being just kind of board votes,
Yeah.
and nothing else. And so, very, very awesome cast. Favorite main characters, the disgusting brothers, of course, Tom and Greg.
Yeah. Greg Egg, baby.
Love them.
Yeah.
Greg, dude. Greg, we didn't even talk
Cousin
about,
Gregory.
but he's
Greg
Greg
just
is
perfect.
he is your proxy as a viewer of kind of
Totally,
like
yeah,
someone who
100%.
knows how the world actually works, and you kind of like he represents your voice, and then he gets corrupted, and you're like,
Yeah.
no.
Well, and the whole thing with his grandpa's
you were
will and
supposed to be
everything,
the
he's
good
like
guy.
Yeah, him suing
trying
Green
to, yeah.
Shades
But,
or whatever it's called. He's suing a climate change activist
Yeah.
organization because he thinks it'll get him money
But-
because his grandpa isn't giving him the
Yeah,
money.
it's
It's
like-
so funny.
yeah, it's
But
It's
even
so
then,
good.
you kind of start to like you get a little excited when you see him kind of come into his own of like learning how to blackmail and like kind of accidentally being really good at manipulating and blackmailing people and getting what he wants. And it's the Walter White thing where it's like even though that's not even what his character is supposed to be, once Walter White separates from Skylar and he can just cook meth full time, you're kind of like, this rocks. This is
Here
awesome.
we
This is what we've been
go.
working for. Even though it's like him
Finally.
becoming a bad guy. And with Greg, same thing with his blackmail. It's like, this shouldn't be exciting or good, but it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when,
Skylar,
when
number
you see
4
him
most
kind of
hated
come into
character
it,
of all
you're
time.
like, oh, this is great. Freak, I love Greg so much.
Greg was awesome. Yeah, all the characters I ended up really finding incredibly compelling. Like, there wasn't a single character where I was like, I don't really care for this character. They all made sense in the context of the story, and they all, like, the show benefited greatly from their inclusion. I thought characters left and came in when they needed to. I think Logan's death was at a great place, and I think it ended in the perfect way. Not maybe the way that was super anticipated, especially like from the beginning of season 1. You would not have seen that coming, because I think they get engaged in the first episode, right? Or one of the first episodes. Maybe they're just
second
dating
episode.
in the very first episode. So if you watch that episode and then you watch the finale, be like, whoa, that is not at all what I would have anticipated happening.
Yeah.
But it's great. It does an awesome job, and yeah, highly recommend it. Really, really loved the show.
Well, that brings us to the end of our Succession discussion. We at the I almost said the Orange Boy Inquiry.
baby.
Wow.
We at Man Cave Movie Night give it a collective 15 stars. That's 5 from each of us.
Yes, sir.
But actually, let's cut it back. Let's only do 12 stars because there's somebody else who might need our stars and your shout-outs.
Yes, that's
Oh,
true.
that's true.
We'll let
That's
her.
on the list.
We'll let her get those last few stars in.
My
well,
mom.
your mom can take a 1 star from each of us, 3
Yeah.
stars, and
We're
shout-outs
going to
from
give
some
her
of our
3
patrons.
stars because
Thank you.
she needs it. Shout out to Kel, my mother. From the 3 of us, you get 3 stars and a shout out from the following people: Rowan Oberg, Nick Bell, Michael Polonsik, Easy Lob, Britton Inkley, Riley Allen, Ian James Martin, and Hannah Steed. Those people shout out my mom because they support us on Patreon, patreon.com/mancavemovienight, where you get to shout out my mom at the end of every episode. And also, you get access to bonus episodes called Post Credits, where we yip and yap and have a good time.
That's true.
That is true. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on another Man Cave Movie Night Monday.
Bye bye, Bazinga.
Shibuya.